protect and preserve health at work while handling chemicals in hospitals. Dr. Vijay Kumar is a senior scientist and faculty in charge of the nephrology laboratory. He's also the chemical safety officer, and he's been a visiting faculty in the Department of Molecular Microbiology and Immunology in Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, Baltimore. He's also underwent special intensive training on techniques used in behavioral toxicology and teratology at ITRC, Lucknow. Over to Dr. Vijay Kumar.
Good evening, everybody. It's a tough task being the last speaker in the evening. In addition, they probably may be moving the podium as I'm speaking to prepare for the next inaugural function, but it won't happen because we have planned it that the podium will not be touched. It's only the benches that may be moved. So planning is important. November, we have Deepavali. December, we have Christmas. So unless you plan your shopping properly, you're going to run into budget problems and later credit problems, especially on the saree section. Now, what am I going to talk about? Chemical hygiene plan. An overview of what I'm going to say is what we are going to see only three things. Number one, what is a chemical hygiene plan? And what is the purpose of chemical hygiene plan? And then again, what is a chemical hygiene plan? If I have to finish it in one slide, I can simply say, remember what Dr. Shanti Naidu said, write it down, make it as a document, write out the procedure to fulfill whatever she asked you to do, follow it, you have your chemical hygiene plan. It is a written program. It is by the employer or the organization. It gives all the details, the procedure, equipment, personnel, everything which will ensure that the worker is protected when they are working with hazardous chemicals. That is chemical hygiene plan. So the purpose, there are three things that we achieve. Number one, the way the chemicals are procured, stored, handled, and disposed is uniform, also safe for the worker. Planning for management of emergencies. You need to know what chemicals you have, how hazardous they are, and if there are very highly hazardous chemicals, something which could detonate like a bomb or which could create a major havoc, then you will have your emergency preparedness in place if you know what it is, and it should be part of your hygiene plan. The last one is not only we do what we want to do to achieve and give the results that we want to give, but also we have to ensure that all the safety guidelines, the quality guidelines of the state and the nation or other regulatory agencies are complied with. So what is chemical hygiene plan? It's a policy the document has a policy statement. It defines the scope, gives various definitions and its applications. The purpose I've already outlined. Clearly, responsibilities should be spelled out. Who handles chemicals? Which chemical is to be handled by whom? In what way? And how in a safe manner? If there is an emergency, let's say we decide to evacuate, then who has the authority to make the decision that evacuation should be done? All of this should be very clearly spelled out in the chemical hygiene plan. About the facilities, about the institute, what are the facilities available there, what is the infrastructure, what are the chemicals that are going to be used, and what special engineering controls are required for using those chemicals in a safe manner should be very clearly spelled out. So if I work in a hospital which has 10 buildings, I need to know that my workplace, my area is safe, as well as I need to have an idea that all work areas in the institution are safe. Here I'm specially referring to chemicals. And also, what are the hierarchy of controls in place? Engineering controls like using a fume hood, they should be made available where fume hood is warranted. And people should be appropriately trained as to how to properly use the chemicals. So that is a very important aspect. Last but not least, clearly define the basic rules and procedures. Simple rules which you will very clearly see mentioned are no personal protective equipment, appropriate personal protective equipment should be used, and no food or drink is allowed within the areas where chemicals are used, and what protective equipment, engineering controls are available in the institute, in that workplace. The chemical hygiene plan should be generic at an institutional level. Where will the chemical arrive when it is coming from the supplier? Where will it go? Who takes inventory? Who distributes it? How is it distributed? And how is it disposed after use? Should be clearly spelled out at an institutional level, generic. In addition to each area, it should be specified. Area-specific plan should also be there. In this laboratory, this is how we use it. When we say chemicals, most often people think only about laboratories. Chemicals are there in labs? Yes. Only in labs? No. In theater, anesthetic gases. In CSSD, chemical sterilants, and ETO, gas sterilization, they are chemicals. In every procedure room, you disinfect the devices that you use by using chemicals. The painter uses a solution to dilute the paint. Thinner, it is a chemical. The mechanical engineering department services your equipment. They clear the grease by using a solution. What is it? Chemical. Toilets cleaning, chemical. Floor smells well, chemical. Everything is chemical. Chemicals are used all over the hospital, so every worker who handles chemicals should know how to handle it. So their responsibility should be very clearly spelled out. For that, we need to know what chemicals we use. The hazard should be identified. The information should be provided and communicated to every worker. They should be trained, and a standard operating procedure should be in place. Remember, a standard operating procedure is not just saying what to do and just saying how to do. It has to say exactly how to do. In other words, there are several exits to this room. If I ask you, how will you exit this room? Many of you may practically demonstrate it by walking out, but you may just say, I'll go straight and turn right. But if I am visibly impaired, if I do not have eyesight, what will be the instructions that I would need? I need to know, take 15 steps forward, turn to your right, 8 steps on your right, then comes the door. On the left is the door which opens, open it, 4 steps, you go to the staircase. That is the type of instruction which should be there in a standard operating procedure. Inventory, it has to be taken unit-wise, and the combined or the compiled together information is the master inventory, which will be maintained by the chemical hygiene officer or chemical safety officer. This should be updated annually. So in the inventory, we need the chemical name. We need certain standard identifications like IUPAC names, CAS number, and so on. In our institute, as I'm the chemical safety officer, so as I prepare the list, the information that I add is the hazard word. Is it danger? Is it caution? Is it warning? I add that. And then the statement, what is the hazard? Is it corrosive? Is it flammable? And then a note as to, like Dr. Shanti Naidu mentioned, for certain chemicals should be clearly spelled out. You should not use this chemical if you're working alone. So that should be very clearly stated. And an important information is how much quantity do you store? Do you store 2 liters, 200 liters, or just 2 ml? That should also be very clearly specified, because that is an important factor to be considered in the planning. Where do we get this information about hazardous chemicals or whether a chemical is hazardous? From the label or from the safety data sheet. For non-laboratory people assembled here, they may wonder why we keep talking about MSDS, SDS repeatedly. Safety data sheet is the backbone of chemical safety. It is very vital. It is the core information which helps us make the chemical hygiene plan. To put it in simple terms, I would say if you buy eye drops, it comes in a cardboard box, it has a bottle in it. In the bottle you have the eye drops. Along with it you are given a paper. What information is there in the paper? The commercial name of the eye drop, the manufacturer, the drug that is present in it, the concentration, how to use it, how many drops, how frequently, whether it can be used for children, elderly women, pregnant women, and so on, and what side effects to look for, and if you encounter side effects, what to do. Everything relevant to proper usage of that eye drop is given in that sheet. For every chemical, that information is given in what we call as safety data sheet. These are two posters that we display in our hospital in every working area. On your left, you will be seeing the safety data sheet, what information it contains. For any chemical, the manufacturer has to tell what hazards it contains. There are 16 sections that they have to answer, 15 sections, and any additional information should be provided under the section 16, other information. So what does it say? Name of the chemical. How dangerous is it? A word. It says either caution or danger or warning. And then what is its composition? Suppose it is a flammable chemical and you have a fire incident because of that chemical. How do you control that fire? Firefighting measures for that chemical. What type of fire extinguisher should you use? Why should I know that information? If I am planning for firefighting in a lab which uses a particular chemical, I need to know what fire extinguisher should be made available there. And sometimes accidental release, how to control and what to do immediately, how to handle, how to store it properly. Every information for the safe handling, and in an untoward incident of someone being exposed, what to do immediately is provided in the safety data sheet. That is why I said it is the backbone. Now, under the new globally harmonized system of classification of chemicals and labels, abbreviated as GHS, this has come into work from June 1st this year, 2015. So you see 10 pictures shown there. Those are pictograms which will be in the label. Everyone using chemicals should know what these labels mean. So I don't need a separate training program. Just by using this slide, I can sensitize you to the meaning of these pictograms. On top are the physical hazards. The one which marks explosive, it shows an exploding bomb. This chemical is unstable. If not handled carefully, it can explode like a bomb. The second one is flammable. It can catch fire. It can catch fire. The third one is an oxidizer. It shows a circle and a flame above it. So these are chemicals which are self-igniting. You don't need fire. It can, beyond a temperature, ignite itself, self-igniting and cause fire. So the storage conditions for flammable and oxidizers are different. The fourth picture is corrosive. What you see there is a test tube. From the test tube, a solution is falling down, let's say Lysol, corrosive. And on the left, there is a metal bar depicted by the black bar. It means that it is corrosive to metals. On the right, you have a hand shown. It means that it is corrosive to skin as well. The last one is a gas cylinder indicating compressed gases. Below, we have 4 pictograms for health hazards. The first one is a silhouette of a human, which indicates a major health hazard, especially when chronic exposure is there. And it indicates either the chemical is a carcinogen, mutagen, or can cause reproductive toxicity, or whether it has specific target organ toxicity like affecting the kidneys. Then the next one, corrosive, we have already seen. The skull and the crossbones indicate acute toxicity. Exclamation mark means a hazard is there. It may not be very severe, yet it is there. It is an irritant. The last one, it means an environmental hazard. The picture that you see there is a tree with no leaves because the tree is dead because of the chemical. Also is shown a line which means a water body like a river or a lake, and a fish is not swimming, it is floating upside down, it is dead because the water is contaminated with that chemical. In other words, this chemical is an environmental hazard. So what is the point that you can get from that picture? You cannot pour it into your sink. It should not reach the public sewer water system until it is properly detoxified. Signages are important, labels are important, and if you, like Dr. Shanti Naidu said, if someone is getting a gallon and distributing it in liters, the secondary container should be very clearly labeled, and there should be secondary labels as well. SOP, the standard operating procedures, they should be procedure specific. If I handle formalin just 1 ml, the SOP of caution for me is different from pathology, which handles liters of formalin. A fume hood is a must for them. So the SOPs are also based on the chemicals that are used. training is very, very important. It brings about awareness and safety issues. It communicates the responsibilities to each and every individual, and then familiarize them with the SOPs that they are supposed to follow. It ensures compliance to the regulations, regulating bodies. Now, it should be part of the induction system. Before a person starts working, he should know what chemicals he is going to handle, what the hazards are, and how to handle it safely. And if a new assay or a new procedure or a new chemical is introduced, instead of Cidex, you're going to replace it with another chemical, then they should be sensitized as to what the new chemical is and what hazards, if any, are associated with it. And the last one, update them periodically by conducting refresher courses and giving updated information. Where can they find this information? Safety data sheet. These should be filed and provided. Hazardous materials or HAZCOM, hazard communication is important. Details about the safety program to protect them. What are the emergency procedures to be followed should also be mentioned there. Remember, people handle chemicals. They may not know about chemicals. The central receiving store, which receives and supplies, they receive methanol, they receive ethanol, they do not know the hazards. They just get 10 bottles and send the 10 bottles to the respective departments. But if a bottle breaks there, they do not know what to do. They must know the chemicals that pass through their hands, the hazards associated with it, and they should be prepared to handle an emergency situation. The activities, how to procure, how to distribute, where to store, how to store. All of these should be spelled out in detail. Procuring, if I want to buy a chemical, I need the SDS to assess if it is safe, to make sure that I have the appropriate engineering controls in place so that every worker in the institution who handles that chemical is protected. Storage, Dr. Shanti Naidu has already highlighted, incompatible chemicals should not be stored together. They should be stored separately. Space is a constraint. In that case, you put it inside a plastic cover, inside a plastic container, and label that secondary container also very clearly. Put them all, each one in a tray, so that if A is incompatible with D, you put A in a tray and D in a tray, so that if there is a leakage from A and D, they will never mix. It is the mixture which makes them incompatible. Please pay attention that chemicals should be stored separately. Alphabetical order is convenient, but not safe. It should be stored appropriately in appropriate containers in appropriate areas. Domestic refrigerators are not good for certain types of chemicals which are highly inflammable. They should be stored in highly storage units for flammable chemicals. Gas cylinders should be chained and well protected and moved only on gas cylinder trolleys. Monitoring, not for every chemical. It's not practical, and it's not advised that way. But if it is a chemical where monitoring is mandatory, it should be done. If you're going to start using it, before using it, monitor the air levels for a period to make sure that you are within the safe limits, and then you can continue your work periodically. Now and then you can check if it is fine. If you are redesigning your facility, once again, do monitor for the level of the chemical if indicated. Care for the caregivers, that is what our logo says. So how do we ensure that they get proper medical care? It is a component of the chemical hygiene plan. Surveillance. Surveillance should be done, like for microbiological contamination, chemical contamination, accidental chemical release, and chemical spills, splashes should be monitored. There may be work-related exposure which should be brought to their notice. Appropriate medical care should be given. It should be documented. I repeat, any incident should be documented. The incident reports are not meant to find fault with the person. If a particular incident keeps repeating, everybody is breaking a sodium hypochlorite bottle everywhere. We do a root cause analysis, we may find it is a very slippery solution, soapy. So to avoid that, we would recommend plastic bottles. So root cause analysis will try to solve the problem, so incident reporting is must. In work-related injury, exposure management is primary. And a person working with, for example, with formalin, they should know the signs and symptoms for overexposure of formalin. They should be alert, and if they show such signs and symptoms, they themselves can identify that they are going into trouble, or their colleagues can do it for them. Then they can go to get the appropriate medical care from the respective unit in the hospital. Or sometimes we may suspect that we are exceeding the threshold limits or exposure limits, and in that case also, medical care or an evaluation should be done and followed up as per their finding. Healthcare should be offered as appropriate for the type of exposure or for the type of chemicals that they use. Periodic monitoring of staff, like they said, someone who's working where eye would be a target, they should be periodically monitored. Skin, periodically monitored. As in microbiology, for chemicals also, periodic monitoring is very important. Housekeeping is important. You may establish a very good eye wash station and shower, and if there is no accident or incident, I will never use it. So once a year I go and open, I may get rust and water. It's not going to help me save or protect my eye. So periodically, it should be checked for whether it is working fine and the water is clear, and that should also be documented. There are several guides for the selection of appropriate personal protective equipment. The simple rule is, what are the ways by which chemicals can enter our body? Through our eyes, protect it. Protect a splash on your eye by wearing safety goggles. It can fall on your face, wear a safe face shield. It can fall on your body, wear an appropriate apron. You are touching it, don't touch it directly, wear gloves. So the areas which can come into contact with that chemical is where the personal protective equipment are employed. And mask, in some cases certain masks, and in some cases an appropriate different mask. Which mask should I choose for this chemical? How would I know? Refer your safety data sheet. Again, I repeat, safety data sheet is the backbone of chemical safety. Not only just using, even what you throw away, you should have a proper record. You may be throwing wasted chemicals, unused chemicals, expired chemicals, or surplus chemicals. Remember, there are some chemicals which are regulated, like methanol. If I buy 500-liter methanol, I need to produce a document to prove how I use the 500, or if I use 300, where the remaining 200-liter is. So destruction certificate is important, so just don't go about and throwing away the chemicals. That also should be properly done with proper record keeping. A simple way to communicate the hazards of a chemical to an individual is by using a proper label. This simple label, you know the pictogram there, you know that there is an exclamation mark, so there is a hazard. And there is a health hazard. It is also a flammable chemical. The target organs are shown there, and the recommended PPE are also mentioned there. So just by seeing this label, each and every one of you can easily decide how you will safeguard yourself when you use this chemical, toluene. It is very simple to communicate the message to the worker, but it is mandatory. It is essential to maintain the safety and appropriate health of the worker when they handle chemicals. In our institution, we have prepared this condensed version of the SDS as posters. So these are displayed in the respective areas. It tells the signal word, danger. For Lysol, it is corrosive. The pictogram is there. The recommended PPE are also mentioned over there. And every information in a condensed form is available in this safety data sheet. A safety data sheet is 20-page long. This one page summarizes the core information. You want to know something more? Go ahead, refer the safety data sheet. Where will it be? Internet. But will internet work always? No. So it is a must that you must print the SDS of every chemical that you use in an area, file it, and every worker should know where it is. Not like what Dr. Shanti Naidu said, kept locked in a suitcase. No. It should be available, accessible, and everybody should know where to access it, and they should access it when need be to know more information about safe handling of the chemical. Those are for two hazardous chemicals, another sodium hypochlorite. When possible, we replace it with less hazardous chemicals. Toilet cleaning was usually done by a hazardous use of strong acids. Now we have several chemicals. In our hospital, we use Tasky solutions of different types. A solution for cleaning glasses, for cleaning floor tiles, for cleaning wall tiles, for cleaning toilet bowls and sinks. There are different solutions. For Tasky R9, see what it says, no reported hazard. So is the chemical a hazardous chemical? No. But below they mention, for prolonged exposure or chronic users, skin protection is preferable, use gloves. If I'm just going to take a can and keep it elsewhere, I need not wear gloves. But if I'm a housekeeping staff who dilutes it or uses it daily, gloves are recommended. So that information is provided in the safety data sheet. Chemical hygiene plan not only tells you how to do things properly, sometimes, however careful we are, incidents can happen. Excuse me. Incidents can happen, and incidents do happen. Two examples I will tell: a chemical spill. First, decide whether it's a small spill or a large spill, then whether it is a minor spill or major spill. If it is a minor spill, you can go ahead and clean it. If it is a major spill, do not attempt to clean it unless you are trained. In our hospital, we plan to train a group of individuals, like the cardiac arrest resuscitation team. We plan to train a group of people for chemical spill cleanup. So whenever there is a spill incident, whomever is on duty with their team will go and help in the cleanup. So what will you assess as a minor and major? Minor, you know the chemical, you know the hazard, it is less hazardous, you know how to clean, no individual is exposed, you have the required material. Go ahead and clean, file an incident report, it's a minor spill. What is a major spill? You don't know the chemical, you know the chemical, the hazard is severe, an individual has been exposed, you know to clean, but it is beyond your capacity, you don't have that much of required material. It's a major spill, do not attempt to clean, isolate the area, evacuate if recommended or needed, and inform and call for help. A team will come and help you. For a major spill, always assess the situation. First, aim at containing it from spreading further, then try to neutralize by using an appropriate chemical. Clean up if it's a minor spill, call for help if it's a major spill. Try to remove it, but remember, if it's an environmentally hazardous chemical, do not just push it off into the drain. It has to be cleaned up in a different way. We always say, think global, but also act local. So if you have a solution which you can't pour it into the sink or just wash off into the drain, what do? Take plenty of cloths, bed sheets, put it on the floor so that that liquid is absorbed in it, put that wet cloth into a bin, let it dry. Every day you clean one by one. So the amount of chemical that you release gets very diluted when it is the public sewer system. It is within permissible limits. So where do you get this information? Safety data sheet. Whatever happens, always record, always report. For a spill, for mercury spill, we have prepared this spill cleanup protocol. We provide them with the spill cleanup kit every ward has, every workplace has, and we are phasing out mercury, and we have now about 96% phased out. There's some 4% yet to be phased out. A chemical splash can happen if it happens on your eye wash, eye irrigation. And if it happens on your body, a shower is recommended. Now again, if you cannot put a chemical eye wash station, at least buy the bottle which is shown on the right side bottom. It is for eye wash. It contains a sterile solution. So just fix it on your eye, open your eye completely, fix it on it, and keep squeezing the bottle so that the water is released and your eye gets irrigated. But it's must you should do ASAP and for at least 15 minutes. Or you can buy the cup which is shown on top, a small cup. You can buy it in any medical shop, 30 rupees. Fill it with saline, sterile saline, open your eye, keep the cup, fit it tightly, tilt your head, and then rotate your eyes so that there is irrigation. Tilt, pour out, keep doing it again and again for at least 15 minutes, and then seek medical help. A measure to protect your eye, or when there is a splash on your eye or on your body, must be in place. What you have, you decide. Spell it out as to what you should do, where it is available, so every healthcare worker will know where to seek that sort of a help. Waste disposal is equally important. Identify the container in which it has to be disposed. Appropriate label should be placed, and it should be accumulated in a satellite accumulation area for a while and then sent for proper disposal, and ensure that it is intact, properly closed so that there is no leakage end rule. We talk about right to know. There are bills passed for right to know. So you may be curious as to how much your neighbor spent for a Deepavali sari. You may be curious to know, but you don't have the right to know. But when you work with chemicals, you have the right to know, and as you know, you have the responsibility to handle it properly. Where will you get this information? Once again, from the safety data sheet. So in summary, what is a chemical hygiene plan? It clearly tells, if I am an institution, what is my policy, in what way am I going to protect the healthcare worker working in my institution when he or she handles chemicals? What are the procedures that they have to follow? I have established the policy, I have shown the procedure, I need to train them, communicate and educate them, implement, put them into practice, monitor if it is done properly, evaluate. If you find any flaws, improve it. And once you have improved, when you say, yes, I meet the criteria, sustain it. And don't settle with sustaining. Always try to raise the bar to go beyond compliance. Summary, chemical hygiene involves several things. All of it is, the plan is to ensure that the worker is protected when they handle various chemicals. As they say in the airlines, there are 2 exits this way, and there are some emergency exits there and this way. Whichever way you choose when you exit this hall, our wish is that you remember what I said about chemical hygiene plan. When you go back to your workplace, think about all the chemicals that are used, even if it is just for toilet cleaning. Address the issue of how to safeguard that housekeeping staff who does the toilet cleaning, the laboratory worker who handles those chemicals, the nurse who does the disinfection of various devices after a procedure. Work out a proper chemical hygiene plan, which will definitely always lead you to safety and keep you in a safer workplace. Thank you.
Dr. Kailasam and Dr. Shanti Naidu. We've been issues from this morning through various speakers.